Hello. So BDSM child porn has been trending on Twitter, and that's kind of my thing because from the ages of 8 until I was 17, I was um, I was used in the production of BDSM child porn, and the way this came about um, is kind of weird. It wasn't a sex trafficking ring that just caught me up. What happened was both sides of my family were two different organized crime families. On my mom's side, we were Melungeon, and I definitely kind of been like out of it for a while, not doing organized crime. Um, so my great grandfather on that side was a whoremonger, and then back at the turn of the century, 18 to 19, and then the 20s and the 30s and the 40s. He was a whoremonger, and they, trained up brides. He's the mail order bride business. Um, and then on my father's side, excuse me, they were travelers. And so what that means is they would do these short cons all over the southeast. So they would go into places and say, well, they would go in after a storm and offer to fix your roof or storm damage, cut down trees, or this or that or whatever, and get the money up front and then take off and never come back and redo the work. And that's how they made a living. They were travelers. And then my great grandfathers on that side were hitmen for the UMWA. So my great grandfathers were probably the closest to like real crime that I had in my family, and then the crime that the rest of the crime was just like little shit. And so it progressively got better, less criminal, but those were the worst criminals, my great grandfathers, the hitmen and the whoremongers. And so that was my family. Then my parents, had me and then divorced almost immediately afterwards. And then the courts gave my mom custody of me, and she'd really manipulated the situation. My mother's very manipulative, um, to where there was a order of protection for her against my dad's family, and that's what she did. Um, And then also, when I was born, my mother had a psychotic break over a birthmark. I have this little tiny birthmark right here. Um, so when she saw it when I was born, she had um, she had a psychotic break and started screaming, and had a delusion that I was the devil. That because that mark on my face, it was clearly obvious that I was the devil, and I had replaced her baby, I guess. Mm. Anyway, so my mom thought I was the devil, and she was like really super like physically abusive of me because she actually thought I was the devil in her delusion. And it never went away. She would fake it because CPS got called so many times, and she would fake it's like, oh, I'm better for that, but no, she never got better. And no, she lied. She lied. She was never better. She was never better from that. And she always thinks that. She doesn't think it if she can't see the birthmark. If I have my glasses on and she can't see it, she's like normalish to me. Um, but if she sees that birthmark, she's like, oh my God, the devil's back. And then that's how she treats me accordingly. Um, so it's a great way to grow up, really. And then in 82, that's when all the grandfathers had died. All my great grandfathers had died, and for the most part, they had kept me fairly well protected from the poobah, um, from the grooming. But once they were all gone, and there wasn't anyone left, that cared to protect me, that's when the sexual grooming started. And it was actually my stepfather who made the videos, under the direction of these people from the KKK. So he was, put on my mom. He was manipulated into, or my mom was manipulated into like going out on a date with him. And then from the one date, within 2 weeks, they were married and he was living with us. And the abuse started almost immediately after they were married. And so the first time that he abused me, I fought back, and I became fairly injured. Um, and then it was totally obvious when I went to school that I had this injury, these shoulder injuries. Um, and and instead of, you know, people who should have been mandated reporters doing anything about it, what they really did, um, and probably because they are also caught up in the KKK, they're probably also white supremacists, really. Um, they told the poobah that, things got out of hand with that guy you hired, and and then it didn't stop. Instead, they said, well, you need to film it for approval to see what you're doing, and then we can direct you better. So, so then the person that was sent to sexually groom me for my child marriage, um, was told to film it so that they could see what was going on and tell him how to do it better. And then, of course, since organized crime, this goes down the chain from the poobah to this guy that I call Lackey to this guy that I call KKK Reject. And so KKK Reject is the one that's, giving the information directly to the stepfather. And then the tapes themselves, they would take the tapes themselves. Um, my mom didn't have contact with any of those people, but she did have contact with the drug dealer that they made the change off with. So the stepdad would go and get the camera from the drug dealer and then bring it home, and they would make the tape. And then my mom and my stepdad would go back to the drug dealer's house to do the drop off, and the payment was an 8 ball and a half an ounce of weed. And then later I confronted my mom about it, and what she said was, I'd never get weed there. His weed's terrible. I was like, oh, good. Good, Mom. That's the answer I was looking for. But that's what happened, even though the weed was terrible. So that makes me feel so much better. So not only did she do it, but also she did it for bad drugs. That's my mom. Anyway, so that continued on from the ages of eight, eight. I was in the third grade, so I might have been nine. No, I think it was eight until I was almost 12. So the summer before I turned 12. So that's that. And then KKK Reject is the one, he's like watching the tapes. So they're all watching the tapes. And then he starts showing the tapes off. He starts showing the tapes to other people. So he starts showing them off. And then someone says to him that you could just, you know, sell these tapes. So that's what he did. And then he recruited 31 other children into the same thing. So there was a total of 32 of us that were sex trafficked by these people. And then KKK Reject would traffic the tapes through his job, his legitimate job, which was he was a distribution manager at a warehouse. So he would put those tapes into the trucks that they were sending out with the merchandise. Um, and that's how they moved the tapes around. And that went on for a very long time. Um, Even after I was 11, because it only went on till I was 11. Because at that point, when I was almost 12, my stepdad wasn't like a big burly guy or anything like that. He was kind of a scrawny guy, short and scrawny, and also had a heart problem. So by the time I was 12, this person, Mark, that I hung out with around town, um, that was also a Melungeon, this other Melungeon kid that I hung out with, had spent about a year and a half, teaching me how to fight. And then when I was the summer before the seventh grade, I had really just had enough of it. I went to school with KKK Reject's daughter, who was in the same grade as me, and she had, like slut shamed me over it, was like telling people about it, and I was just really super stressed out about it, and I didn't want to like and you can't not go to school, and right, couldn't get away from, so I have the abuse at home, and then I go to school, and then this kid who's got these special privileges because she's, they're the rulers of the town, is like bullying the ever loving fucking shit out of me. So I didn't want to go through that anymore, and so I fought off the stepdad, and he left shortly thereafter, and I was almost 12 when that happened, and then it was Mark that taught me to fight, and then once they found out who it was that taught me to fight like that, um, they broke his arm. KKK Reject, and this other guy that I'm gonna call fat ass. KKK and fat ass met Mark getting off a bus once they found out who it was that taught me to fight, and I held him, I said, "Are you left-handed or right-handed?" And told him, and then I like held his arm straight out, and then popped his elbow and broke his arm. So he couldn't play baseball anymore because he was in high school at that point, playing baseball. And so that's how that ended, that small section. But then of course it didn't end because it went on until I was 17. And but that's how my stepdad. That's how the first videos got made. On up until from the ages of 8 until I was almost 12. And then when you see like Josh Duggar got arrested for notorious porn, my those videos are part of that notorious porn collection that involves BDSM child porn. So like anytime you hear that on the news, the notorious child porn, that's what's included. Those videos of me between the ages of 8 and 11 years old, almost 12. Um, Multiple of those. And then also, you can read about the other videos that are included in that collection online. It's an Australian snuff film with I think a 10-year-old girl, and another one who's ended up with a broken femur. So that's the porn that Josh Duggar had, and I know people don't know. They see it on the news and they don't know what it means. It's always so shocking, but that's what it is. It's bad. It is really, really bad. And that's 15 minutes.